Welcome your hosts, Caddy Frank and Aaron Fitzgerald, as they lead discussions about substance use disorder and the journey to recovery. You're listening to Redefining Recovery, a recovery revolution.
Well, good day, everybody. We are here at Redefining Recovery, a recovery revolution. And I am delighted to look across the table. I have Miss Erin and I have Sir Bill, a wonderful guest today. So I want to lean on Erin to thank us for some folks.
Absolutely. A special thanks, as always, to our generous funders. They include the Patrick and Amy Butler Family Foundation, Otto Bremer Trust, the Sauer Family Foundation, the Hardenberg Foundation, alongside many other founders. Thank you. This show would not be possible without you.
Oh, thank you, people. Thank you, people. Thank you, people. So we are here on a beautiful day. Mm-hmm. Wowza. It's so nice to see the sun. So, Miss Erin, as always, what is right with you today?
Today is a good day. It's mostly good for my little fella. It's his first day of summer break, and he gets to hang out with Grandpa this morning, who's in town from California, and they're going to go down and hang out with Grandma this afternoon as well. So that'll be a lot of fun for them, and that's right for me because I like to see them together.
Yeah. How very, very nice.
Yeah. How about you? What's right with you today, Caddy?
Well, I woke up today, slept in just a wee bit. The alarm actually had to go off to wake me up.
Joy.
Oh, it was so great. Having very weird dreams. Very weird dreams, though. But the sun is out. It's going to get dry a little bit. Some of you have heard that I'm a gardening freak. So I actually get to get outside and actually dig in the ground because I had a birthday recently and I got some lovely plants from the woman across from me and another human. So I'm very excited about gardening in the next couple of days. So the guest we have in the office, the studio, wherever we are, Bill. Erin, why don't you introduce Mr. Bill here?
My friend Bill Houston. Yay, I'm very excited to have you here. Bill is the site supervisor at Community Medical Services. We met about a year and a half ago, yeah?
About
a year and a half ago. Yeah, why don't you tell the folks who you are and why you're here?
Oh, so what's right with me is I'm here, which is awesome. Well, on this side of the dirt, that's always a positive part of the story you'll hear later. But I get to hang out with two super fun, super authentic people this morning. So that's wonderful because when you're in long-term recovery and you're dealing with people trying to be in recovery, you're fighting a lot of battles. And I think this will be a good conversation. Just
Absolutely.
Open and honest and probably a little snarky here and there.
I hope so.
Snark. Snark's good. You know, it kind of keeps everybody on their toes. Every now and then we have like a flubble or a fooble that happen in here, and it just makes us really human. And I am delighted because Bill took my class.
I did.
When was that?
2021, maybe?
2021?
Where are we now? 4, 3, 2, 2022, maybe.
Okay.
So I had just come out of a long medical fog and was trying to figure out a new career and was getting kind of immersed in different recovery meetings and things. And as a teacher in the past, I thought, well, I could teach stuff. I could read stories. I could tell stories. And a LADC friend of mine said, well, why don't you put your money where your mouth is and get these little letters past your name, that's CPRS. And I went, why? What? Is it a cult? But I looked into it, and Minnesota Recovery Connection was arguably, very highly recommended. And I just took a leap of faith, promised you all 60 hours of answering phones, and there I was.
Yeah.
And then I took like every other class you ever offered, and then met Erin, who I think also took every other class you ever offered.
Yeah, for sure.
And then she started teaching them all.
Yeah, we met in harm reduction, and we both were like, we want to be trainers to do this too. So then we just kind of sparked a friendship, yeah.
It's so interesting how when you take a class like the Peer Recovery Specialist training to become a PRS, Peer Recovery Specialist, and then Bill got certified as Erin got certified, it's like the gates just open to all kinds of opportunities in the recovery community. And it's just amazing to see how far people can come because of this lived experience. Right. Not instead of or besides or on top of or below or whatever. It's because we are living a life that's in recovery And we all have incredibly different stories, and we're going to be so honored to hear Bill's story today. And it's just so wild. And I get to be this person who gets to actually lay kind of first eyes on people and see this incredible development. I mean, that's kind of the lens that I have now as being one of the trainers at Minnesota Recovery Connection. Where do we work? Minnesota Recovery Connection. And it's just a cool thing. It's just such a cool thing.
And I don't know about you, Bill, but when I took the class with Caddy, I was kind of like, I don't know what I'm going to do with this, but it was just like amazing information. And like you, I did the volunteering and just wanted to learn more. And then I realized like that's not necessarily what my groove was. I wanted more. There was just something that I needed. And you kind of felt that too. So what is it that you're doing now?
Well, I'm a nerd, so put me in a class and I'll just learn anything because it's fun.
Right.
And I remember when I looked into what the class was, and I've had a ridiculous amount of university education. I thought, well, what's 5 days going to get me? 40 hours. I mean, it doesn't make, so what? What it gets you is diving into your own head and figuring out a lot of things that you never would have figured out otherwise, and then being able to express that to what are now clients. And in my case, I work, Community Medical Services has 2 opioid treatment on-demand clinics, one in Roseville, one in North Minneapolis. And we're an outpatient facility, and we help people with opioid addiction. So in the Minneapolis clinic I work in, we have anywhere from, 125 to 225 people come through a day. And I get to talk to them and tell them, when appropriate, my story, hear their stories, share lived experience. We laugh together, we cry together. And really that 40 hours of that class teaches you skills that you might have known you had, but you didn't know how to deploy them. And it's really it's brilliant.
Yeah, no, and I stand on the hill with a lot of individuals that birthed this program. I just was lucky enough to get into it to be able to be a facilitator. And to your point, Aaron, the idea is that you take this class like I did back in 2016. And I'm like, not quite sure what I'm gonna do with this and what it's gonna be. And as I'd say the lead facilitator of the class, I always say that it's like, you might not be a peer recovery specialist, but you might find something else within the recovery community that you can do to give back.
Yeah, and there's so many people that would benefit from that class.
And, not everyone's cut out to go stand in front of groups. Not everyone's cut out to be a one-on-one therapist or to hear crisis. Some people have more triggers than others, which prevents them from doing certain things. But when you get the foundation of the skill sets plus then learning how to tell your story more effectively, then you find your niche. So who knows, maybe you write books, maybe you teach, maybe you work in a facility. I mean, you don't have to work in a crazy facility that's full of people. You could be in a medical facility, a therapy, So I think the options open up, and what you find is there's never enough of us around. Never enough people to fill the need, especially when you start getting outside the cities and the workforce gets smaller and they don't have the opportunities maybe to just drive in and catch this 40 hours.
Right. Well, and if there's ever a good thing to say about COVID is that we did get to absolutely open up the
gates,
the incredible gates of Zoom and or whatever, online training.
Yeah.
I mean, it really was the gift that we have because, to your point, exactly, there's so many people, it's not just addiction in the cities. It's addiction everywhere. And potentially when you go out into more rural communities where there is no support, there isn't that, we have the opportunity to say, hey, if you want to work in this field or you want to just get more education or you want to just open up your mind like we all have had happen with taking this class, it's like, here we are, So I'm with 2 incredible humans. I'm with so many incredible humans all the time that really care about our recovery community and want to share the conversations and see how people tick. And it's the greatest gift that I have. I threaten leaving MRC every year-ish, and I just keep staying on for another year-ish and then another year-ish because I care so much. So we're going to take our first break, and when we come back, I want to bring Bill into the conversation, and he's going to share a a lot of really interesting journeys that he's had along on his recovery journey. So thank you for listening. Redefining Recovery, a recovery revolution.
Welcome back to Redefining Recovery, a recovery revolution. We are here with Bill Houston, and he is going to share some of his story with us. Bill, where does your story begin, sir?
It's complicated, sort of. Well, I'm in long-term recovery, so that's the bottom line. You know, I in some respects, I'm kind of a poster child for addiction can hit anyone, because one of the great stigmas is it's only for people in the city. It's only people certain races, certain ages. And, you know, honestly, I had a very benign middle-class upbringing. I grew up in New Hampshire. My parents were school teachers. I was aware in my early teens that we had some active alcoholics in our family, but they were either funny or harmless or both. So, and I didn't grow up in an area with really rampant drug issues.
Yeah. In the time frame, because we're similar in age, you know, sometimes things were very not talked about.
Yeah, I had someone ask me once, they said, you know, what was your drug education? I said, well, Nancy Reagan scared me straight. That was the public service. You put out
that was it.
It was a celebrity saying, don't do this. Eric Clapton would have been a lot more effective. But I was a good kid in school. I had good grades without trying. I did in high school smoked a lot of weed, but it wasn't a big deal.
The thing?
I just kind of did, and then I gave up, and who cares? But the drinking started really from day one in college. I didn't even really experiment with that much as a kid, teenager, and it just went feral. Fraternities didn't help. I was at the University of Vermont, a very, call it liberal social culture, and it took off. And there's another layer to this. So I got a degree in geology. And who knew that geologists, just as general, I am going to be very judgmental and stereotypical here, we're all a bunch of drunks. It's an industry, it's amazing. And if you go out and look at like geology Facebook pages with memes, it's all about drinking and vans. Yeah, it's a funny thing. And so I went through 3 degrees in geology just because I loved it. Got a PhD in geology, so look how smart and sophisticated I am. And I entered corporate industry in the oil and gas industry, and guess what all the geologists were still doing? Drinking all the way up to the CEOs of major oil companies. You know, drinking, free, you know, Christmas parties, open bars, conferences.
Well, they had a lot of money.
Tons of money. And it was a thing, and it was the worst kept secret anywhere. Everyone in the oil industry drank a lot, and we were successful also. I mean, we made good money. I was a geologist. I'm a scientist. I got to do stuff that was really engaging and really cool and high risk, and we had successes, and we dranck.
Because to celebrate everything, right?
Failures, successes, you name it. And so it was always in the background. I got married around 30, and my wife was my age, and I inherited Megan, my 13-year-old daughter. And it didn't change much, but Megan was used to being around adults all the time. We'd hang out and drink beer and just have fun and barbecue, and she was used to being around adults. So it was just the way things were. Normal. And fast forward, there were certainly times in this is about a 35-year progression of drinking. So there's times where, jobs were affected, jobs were lost, jobs I ran away from, relationships were damaged. But, you just kept thinking, this is life. This is how things go. And in the oil industry, you get merged and fired and anyway, even if you're stone cold sober. So you always have a good excuse. So it was just a party until it wasn't.
Right.
And, truth be told, my wife and daughter, my wife's name is Chris, in probably the last 5-6 years of this mess, were becoming increasingly emotionally distraught.
Yeah. When was it not a party anymore? Who discovered that it wasn't the party?
Nice.
I mean, I think I knew for a long time, probably. So you'll find out in a minute why 2019 is such a pivotal year.
Right.
But probably in the 6, 7, 8 even years before that, I was like, this doesn't seem sustainable.
Right.
But guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to quit on my own when I decide I'm going to quit on my own.
Hey, that do-it-yourself method.
Yeah.
Experimenting a little longer.
Some years I try 10 times, sometimes once because I couldn't be inconvenienced.
Absolutely. Well,
Or,
busy.
Yeah. And so, I knew it was a problem. My wife and I kind of talked about it in low tones, and it wasn't, she's tiptoeing around. And I'm like, but maybe no one knows.
Right.
She's like, yeah. But it's really hard to worry about your job when you're at the Christmas party and the CEO is blasted.
Right.
So
it's normalized. I mean, a lot of industries. I just want to say what's so interesting as I hear your story, I think about my retail background because Bill and I are similar in age, and there was a point in time back in 80s, 90s, even 2000s where drinking is just the way business was done, and I'm just sitting here mesmerized by your story because it's so similar, but to incredibly different industries, but it's all the same.
Yeah. I want to acknowledge that you're trying to bait me into saying I'm younger than you, and I'm not going to say, I might have just said that. Shoot.
Damn it.
Inside voice.
Oh, sorry. Darn it.
Yeah, it is. Well, and I mean, just societally, you can walk into a bar. I mean, it's everywhere. It's legal. And nobody, 17-year-old kid gets busted for having a six-pack of beer. There's, no real consequence. Maybe they get fined, sent home to their parents. But alcohol is so incredibly normalized.
It brings people together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's go to happy hour.
It was much later in my recovery that I realized. So my mom was an alcoholic, and my grandmother was an epic alcoholic. Oh, my goodness. Stoli on the rocks at 11 a.m. every day. It's great.
Wow.
And I realized much, much later, for them, it was very much social and upbringing trauma, like legitimate, too complex to go into, but not trauma of the sort like being, like child abuse or poverty, but they grew up in money and really difficult social norms for women and not a lot of education and emotional coping skills. So that was their avenue. But what I acknowledge there is I'd be silly not to say that there's got to be some genetic piece to this.
Yeah.
And, the doctors can argue all day about it, but I see this every day in the clinic that I work in is, well, my father taught me how to smoke fentanyl. Like, holy smokes. Or go to an AA meeting down south and it's like, hey, here's my grandfather and my son with me here at the meeting.
There's no doubt that there's a generational kind of quip to it.
Chains need to be broken everywhere.
Yeah.
But, I've had 1,000 counselors say, you must have buried trauma. And we've been through this a million times. And I don't have it. I just don't. I don't. Like I said, I had a privileged upbringing. My issue was really probably the propensity for it from being around it, the genetics, and then ending up in environments that just, I can't even say it promoted as a normal lifestyle. It was almost like a job requirement.
Absolutely.
And I remember colleagues being ridiculed out in the bars who didn't drink.
Oh.
Like, what's your problem? Oh, I can't wait till he leaves. He makes me nervous. So, this, like I said, it was a rolling party. And the unfunny thing is, so I worked all over the U.S. and then I worked in Asia Pacific for quite a few years, and it didn't change. And a lot of it's driven by the expat culture. So when I lived in New Zealand, a lot of Brits, a lot of Canadians and geologists, and they were the same culture, and we tried to take other countries down with us.
Follow our lead, because we're all just going to ride on this boat.
It turned out that wasn't hard to do in Australia.
No.
So, like I said, it was fun till it wasn't. And it really, I knew that the family was breaking. But then I'm at the point, and I tell people this a lot, I know I have to stop or it's going to be bad. But I can't fathom stopping because it could be bad.
Yep.
That's how you think. It's like, well, if I stop, everything's going to be horrible. It's going to be, I'm going to be
That's
miserable.
a big question mark. There's an unknown.
Yeah.
We've never done that before.
Yeah.
My whole job is working under uncertainty in the oil industry. It's, you're spending hundreds of millions of dollars for something that has a 20% chance of success. So you'd think uncertainty should be right up my alley, but not with drinking.
No.
Because there's a certain thing, and that's that I can keep doing it.
Yeah, it's the one constant.
Yeah, and I'm looking in the mirror going, this is working great. This is terrific. So it really did take a medical crisis. to start the ball kind of rolling with the real analysis of it. And the other thing was that I've learned in recovery is, I didn't understand any of these basic self-awareness topics. I mean, you can walk someone on the street and say, give me a definition of humility. And you'll get a million superficial definitions, but they don't strike at the core of what it might be, and they don't strike what it means for you.
Yeah.
Same thing for forgiveness or acceptance or patience or and I've said to many people, if I knew everything at 22 that I've learned in my recovery, I would have been brilliant.
So many things would have been different if we...
So the blind spots are just prolific.
Yeah.
And like I said, this is a 35-year progression of blind spots amidst relative success. So you have zero motivation to do anything.
Preaching to the choir right here. I mean, absolutely. I was 39 when I stopped. So
Same.
yeah, it's really interesting how we can just sort of move along on this trajectory that seems so normal, even though there's these questions that pop up in our background. Oh, I'm just mesmerized by your story.
The other interesting part that we'll get to later is obviously statistically mental health and addiction of any kind are hand in hand, and there's all kinds of numbers. I think it's like 80% of people with any addiction have a mental health overprint. And everyone thinks, well, mental health, that's like bipolar, schizophrenic. What I found out in recovery, just a modicum of ADHD makes a difference. And there's been a big argument, as an adult being diagnosed, well, is it clinical or is it behavioral or is it, it doesn't matter. And when I look back with zero testing, because no one got tested, and the kids didn't for anything. I mean, my mother was a school teacher, and if a kid came in all wound up or something was wrong, she's like, oh, too much sugar.
Yeah.
But now that I look back on where I struggled as a kid, which wasn't often, at least to my knowledge, it was probably ADHD tendencies. Yeah. And my wife looked at me a couple of years ago. So I'll be 5 years sober on July 4th. So this is a couple of years ago. She looked at me and she said, what I've learned about you? And I said, what? She said, if my brain worked like yours did, I would have drank too.
Wow.
Yes.
Big self-medication. Now, the other thing is my wife and daughter looked at me once and said, we're having problems with you being sober. And I said, well, isn't that the goal? And they said, yeah, but now there's no off switch.
Wow.
Because the ADHD part is just feral right now.
Wow.
Which is a blast for me.
Yeah.
Maybe not so much for everyone else.
I think it's great. Chris embraces it too. She just likes to give you a hard time.
Well, yeah. It's what I am.
Yeah. I want to add to that. When we talk about either mental health issues or we talk about, for me, learning disability. I've talked about many times the dyslexia.
Invisible
Different
abilities
and disabilities. It drove me to doubt myself all over the place. And when I couldn't cope, the place where I could cope was in a bar or with something because it just brought down the anxiety around not being able to do certain things comfortably. So it's really interesting that you bring that up because it's just like, it doesn't, as you said, necessarily have to be a gigantic traumatic event but there's things that are going on that can influence how we just figure out how to make it through each day.
And we're not generally analyzing those. We're just trying to fix them, right? We're not internalizing and trying to figure this out. Unless we're taught to be able to cope with things.
Right.
And we were not.
Yeah.
Well, we didn't grow up in an era where you went to therapy.
No.
My mom, when I was a teenager, sent me to therapy. I went for 4 sessions, lovely man, played backgammon, all 4, never talked about anything, never went back. Didn't know why. And I asked my dad a couple of years later, I said, what was all that about? And my dad was a bit dysfunctionally in my mom's corner all the time and very passive. And he said, well, in a nutshell, the therapist said that she sent you to therapy to take care of her problems.
Oh, yeah. Oh, okay.
I know, yeah. Because my mom never would have set foot in a therapy office.
Because of the stigma around mental health, yeah.
So we deal with everything on an acute basis. I had a bad day. I need a glass of wine. I had a woman ask me once, well, she was on a platform about, well, if you just never, ever try alcohol, you can't be an alcoholic. I said, all right, I'll give you that high ground. If you never, ever, ever do, good on you, whatever. Right. But say you're 17 years old, you're having just the horriblest week ever of trauma. and you've never had a drop, and you say, well, my mom and dad drink a glass of wine or 5 every night with dinner, maybe I'll do that. And if you've got the gene or the propensity or the shame or whatever else, and you self-medicate that first time, then you're off to the races.
Welcome to the party.
So it's not, addiction isn't something we diagnose just because, this person has trauma, this person has family history. It's very unique, very individual, and it can come out of nowhere.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh,
Very good points.
Yeah, absolutely. I think about myself. I didn't, we've said this before. I didn't wake up it's really like 19. I didn't really have that first drink except for at First Avenue for my 19th birthday. I got my bottle of champagne. Kind of kicked me off a little bit. But I didn't have that first bottle of champagne saying, whoop, here's alcohol. I'm going to be an alcoholic.
Right.
It was like, wow, here's alcohol. Oh, I can forget all my problems.
Well, and people hadn't taught us how to use it.
Yeah.
Right.
No, just have fun with it because it's so normal to just drink. And if you didn't, it was so weird. So weird.
And even if you didn't have parents that were drinkers, it's so normal on TV and in the media. Oh, I know what those people
dinner.
do. Right. I know what those people do when they're upset or had a bad day. They just grab a beer.
Yeah.
Easy peasy.
I'm interrupting only because a story just came to my mind. If anybody's from Minneapolis, they might know of Liquor Lyles, South Minneapolis, Franklin and Hennepin. That was kind of a joint. Been there, done that?
Yeah.
Back in the day?
Well, I wasn't there back in the day, but I know of it in the stories because
Yeah.
it's a common story among the people with substance use disorder that I talk to
Rack
here.
'em up. But interesting is that there was a guy who was one of our band of humans that would go there and meet. And all of a sudden he came in one day and he's like, we're like, hey, what do you want? And he's like, no, I can't. I'm not drinking right now. He says, I found out I'm allergic.
Yes.
And we all kind of looked at him like, what? And I now have reflected on that. I don't know how many times. And I'm like, that was the only way that he could give an explanation or an excuse for not drinking.
I love that. My son one time when he was 14, my oldest son, sorry, when he was 14-ish, I had a reuse and he was like, Mom, you forgot you're allergic to alcohol. Because that's what I had told myself too. Like, if I'm allergic, there's, why would you put something that you're allergic to into your body? You know it's going to make you sick. Yeah, that's great.
It was just so interesting. And this is, I don't know, this is like 30 plus years ago.
I mean, I could say, oh, look at that can of beer. That's safe. But I'm allergic to a 30 cube of hams.
It's just, it's the stories we have to make up in our mind, or we hear other people say, or it's so normalized depending upon where you come from, but it's so normal everywhere. But it is such a huge problem, It took me down. It took you down. So continue on, Bill, please.
Well, I think for all of us, you hear the term, when you hit bottom, that's when you're going to start to make rash decisions. And everyone's bottom's different. Someone's bottom could be, I got a divorce because of my addiction. It could be, I've had 7 DUIs, whatever. But the funny thing is we ignore the one thing we actually also have control over, which is our own health. And we get really used to like masking hangovers or, going to work smelling like a still. That's what cologne's for. And so we mask and we mask. So if you eat bacon for most of your life and then you have a heart attack and the doctor says you're going to go into cardiac rehab and cut up back on bacon, a lot of people will do that. They'll be like, all right,
That makes sense.
yeah, that would get me on a rant about turkey bacon. I don't see the point. But but we don't do that with alcohol. So we think the hangover's the worst part, the blackouts, or, maybe I got an offender bender, but I got away with it. But we don't think about the dire medical piece.
Yeah.
And I didn't necessarily have those. Well, I did eventually have the dire medical piece, but that wasn't apparent. What the kicker should have been was I went from a point where I was self-medicating and just drinking because I could and because it was professionally acceptable and everything, to a point where I had to function.
Yep.
And this is no different. I do want to say that when we talk about drugs and alcohol, I really like the switch to the term alcohol and other drugs, because I don't think we can diminish any of them. And I think the only reason we differentiate them is because alcohol is legal
Right.
and free, and most drugs aren't. So alcohol, like fentanyl or like methamphetamine or anything, is going to take a physical toll on you. And I knew late in the game that I couldn't function without some amount of alcohol. And people really undervalue what alcohol detox looks like. Alcohol detox kills more people than any other drug detox because it's very prone to seizures that cause heart attacks.
Yeah. Yep.
That's kind of a goofy statistic, but it's a real one. And the tremors you can get hallucinations. It's really kind of terrifying. And you know that even a tiny bit of alcohol keeps that away.
Absolutely.
So then you end up doing your regular drinking, night, day, whatever your schedule is. And then you're supplementing. It's like you're taking one Fred Flintstone alcohol vitamin all day long, and then you're taking a bottle of them at night. So I started to realize when that physical dependency, like that crisis dependency physically was there, I was like, this is bad, but you don't know how to get out.
No.
Did you say something right away when you recognized that?
No. I had a couple therapists over time kind of loosely and broached it, but they were like, well, I'm not going to, in hindsight, they're like, well, I'm not going to really push this. So, it was kind of a half-hearted cry for help maybe. So that didn't, but it made me think a little bit. And then, but no one really approached me with like, let's do something. It was always, like yelling at a drunk when they're drunk doesn't help.
Nope.
So there was no, now that we're all here in this harm reduction business and we're talking about harm reduction, having compassion for people that have addiction, that compassionate response has so much more productivity. The thing is, you don't get instant gratification. That's what society wants.
Yep.
Get them better.
Get her done.
You go to treatment, you come out, you're all good, which is not what happens.
No.
So I don't know how that could have looked different. I think if I had been in a community where there was harm reduction resources and someone had used them, maybe there was a chance. But the reality was my wife and daughter, after some medical events started to occur, said, you're going to treatment. And I said, I'm good with that. Because I was just sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Yep.
And that was the only, so I had to have like some early catastrophic medical interventions, plus an angry family, plus the realization that I was completely dysfunctional before I said, okay, let's give treatment a shot. And even then I didn't know what was going to happen there. I didn't know. I mean, I didn't, okay, put me in a place, I get a bed. I was like, who there is going to talk me out of what I'm doing in a week or 2 or 4?
And right there is the magic of what we are doing in our community, which is peer recovery services. When you've got somebody who is breaking down physically in front of you, and you're not sure if you want to do treatment because you're like, is it going to do anything? But if somebody besides family could have been there, that therapist might have actually said something that said, hey, you know what, I got this person. They kind of walked a similar path as you, and you're not sure if this is going to work or not. But, why don't you go talk to Erin? Because Erin, has been down a road to recovery, and she went to treatment, and she did this, and she did that. And that could have been the changing thing for you, but it can be the changing mark for anybody if in this harm reduction, like you said, Bill, this harm reduction space that we're in, hey, do you want to just talk about maybe looking at life a little different? I mean, it's just amazing that...
Well, I've got a couple friends right now, friends of friends who are introduced to me who have alcohol issues, and they were introduced to me like, hey, this is my friend Bill. He's a peer specialist. If you go to him and say, you're going to go see a drug and alcohol counselor, that's terrifying. And they both responded. We'd have some conversations. And then as a little bit of awareness was shown, the first thing I rolled it into was, why don't you just run down to the county health service and get an assessment? And they're like, what? I said, you sit down with this person for an hour. Just be honest. And they were terrified, but they did it. Because I said, look, it doesn't go anywhere. It's your private health information. You're going to get it back. It's probably going to upset you. But look at it with objectivity. Look at it as someone who doesn't know you saying, here's some stuff you might want to look at. So instead of saying, I'm driving you to treatment.
Right.
I did that once for a guy. He said, drive me to treatment. So I did, and he was out in 6 days.
Right.
He just walked away. So this peer path is, I think, really beneficial in easing people into places they won't go.
Wow. I mean, it really is just an amazing thing. So we're going to be taking a break in a second here, and Bill is going to continue us on his journey, and we're going to walk into some interesting conversations. So thank you for listening to Redefining Recovery, a Recovery Revolution. We'll catch you in a sec.
This guitar needs 6 strings, 'cause without it there's no song. And this house needs love in it, 'cause without it there's no home.
We're always into jamming to that for a little bit. Probably let it go on for a while.
We could.
Welcome back to the show. We are Redefining Recovery, or Recovery Revolution. I'm Erin Fitzgerald. Across from me is Caddy Frank, and we are having a conversation today with Bill Houston, and he has just been enlightening us on his recovery journey and some interesting facts. And so you and your family kind of had before we left for break, you were saying that you and your family had decided that treatment was going to be the option for you at this point.
Yeah, it was. So we know also statistically that interventions don't work. You know, we're going to get crazy Uncle Bob and Aunt Peggy and Mom and Dad in the room, and we're going to drive this person off to treatment. That doesn't work. But with my wife and an adult daughter, who I know love me and I love them, and they said, you're going to treatment. So that was the intervention. And I knew. Mm-hmm. But this came, I'll give you just a quick part of the launch. February 2019, major medical catastrophe. I had a blunt contusion on my lower leg, and it just bled. From my knee down to the end of my toes was purple. Looked like a wine flask. I was on the Upper Peninsula, Michigan, no critical care, went down to a hospital in Traverse City. Was diagnosed with all kinds of blood disorders, and there was veiled conversation of maybe my liver trying to escape the hell that it's in. But it was never, to me, was never addressed. And even later, my wife said, yeah, they were really cagey about it. They just kind of wanted to get rid of us. Mm-hmm. So it was after that event. And, of course, that didn't stop me from drinking, because why?
You had a boo-boo. You needed to, medicate.
Yeah, I mean, blood, skin, it all grows back. So... it was in, May or so that my family said, we got you a bed, you're going. And I said, okay, let's just do this. Funny sidelight is I had a little flask of wine with me because I was partially detoxed, but not totally, and I was kind of a wreck. And I got out of the car at treatment, and I never touched it, and I poured it out.
Wow.
Kind of as a cathartic thing. I found out later that as long as I went into treatment, I could have drank the whole thing in the parking lot, and I was like, I probably should have. But that's when I went into treatment, and the plan was for 4 weeks. I ended up staying for 7 for a variety of reasons, which is all wonderful, really fond memories. But the medical decline continued through there. So there's part of that story that'll come up about where that took me mentally, where it took my family mentally. Of course, nobody had any illusions that I would come out sober. No, you don't know.
No.
So there was still, although it was positive progress, there was a lot of uncertainty, and my health was obviously going south quickly.
Tell me about that story you mentioned yesterday about the LADC counselor who just sort of looked at you.
Well, I had a couple, in hindsight, weird things in treatment. So I went into treatment pretty jaundiced and down about 50 pounds. So, I mean, I looked horrible, and I was exhausted all the time, and everyone knew it. I mean, I had people in there, in my unit who were doing insane amounts of cocaine and things who looked way healthier than I did. And a few things happened. In the medical unit was a doctor. So you go in, and I had to spend the first 24 hours in the medical unit to make sure I was okay. And he keyed in right away, like, this guy's super sick. And he was the one who sent me into Minneapolis to meet with a hepatologist, because he knew. He's like, yeah, I mean, I was there for alcoholism. And I went into that hepatologist. He said, oh, duh, your liver's shot.
Will you just tell the listeners what a hepatologist is?
So a specialist in liver disease.
There we go.
And so when I went and met him, like, never drew blood, never even touched me, and I'm thinking, what a quack. Well, because he sees hundreds, thousands of me a year.
Right.
And this is the man at the front end of the transplant process, which I didn't know at the time. But the doctor, who doesn't know me from a hole in the wall, sees I'm jaundiced. He's like, yeah, this is where this is going. And the hepatologist said, well, yep, this is your problem, alcoholic cirrhosis, I'll see you in 6 months. And I thought, that's weird, but I went back to treatment. Turns out because you have to be sober 6 months to even qualify for a transplant. That's a part of the story yet to come.
So he just skipped over telling you this information?
Well, I don't know. I could have missed it. I was in very good shape. But that was my recollection was I'll see you in 6 months and call me if you need me.
Yeah.
Wow.
But there was no follow. And of course, I'm sure he's thinking he's got to get through treatment, come out the back end and see how he's doing. Because if it didn't change anything, I was never going to get listed.
Right, and I'm sure there's many people that don't make that 6 month.
Many.
Yeah,
I
and
tell
so he
a
probably
lot,
didn't put a lot of time into that.
I tell a lot of people, you may never meet someone that's had a liver transplant, but you have undoubtedly met or encountered someone who has needed one or ultimately died because they didn't get one.
Right.
There's more than you think. And that in working right now with the support groups for the liver transplant program, we talk a lot about people that they go in, with 3 months to live, and there's nothing you can do because you can't give an organ to someone that's not going to treat it well.
Right.
Or that's not going to survive. There just aren't enough.
Right.
But then in treatment, I switched counselors when I went through different units. And I had one counselor early on who was very nice to me, but this is a treatment notice thing, insurance. Day 9, they're like, when's he done?
Wow.
When's he done? When's he done? Day 11, they said, you have to resubmit every 2 days to stay in there. So on day 13, and my counselor's calling my wife going, this is a nightmare. And day 13, my counselor comes in and she goes, we need a better plan because insurance is going to kick you out. And so we ourselves came up with a plan to stay on campus. We were paying for lodging. The insurance paid for treatment. Like we jockeyed this thing. So I went to another unit, and the counselor there just never was very warm to me. I thought it was just because she was kind of being professional, but I think it was two things. I was the walking dead. I do think there were people there, maybe just their implicit bias, like, how much time are we going to spend on this guy?
Wow.
He's going to be here for a few weeks, months, and he's going to leave, and then, oh well. But also, I am, like I said, I'm a nerd. I'm very intellectual. That's how I process. I was in wildly diverse groups of people and working groups in treatment, obviously, with all kinds of different jobs and education levels and cultures. And I wanted to tear into everything, and most people didn't. So she thought I was avoiding the work. And what I was doing was just trying to process as I process. And so we just never clicked. But I got a feeling from a couple of the nurses, too, that they're just looking at me kind of sideways going,
He ain't gonna
poor
make
guy, he ain't going to make it. And that was a fair judgment. But that'll take us later into the stigma in the medical community.
Yeah.
Again, the medical community is human. It's no different than the rest of the world. And people go in, different awarenesses, different biases. Two of arguably the hardest groups to get reemployed in after going to treatment are medical and airline pilots. Because they have such high responsibilities, and they're extremely stigmatized against if they have an addiction. Oh, you're a nurse, you're a doctor, you're a pilot, you should know better.
Right.
And so I found, subsequently that people in the medical community hide their addictions very, very well.
Yeah.
And which is not to say that they're worse than any of us. That's just
It's
survival.
the stigma. Yeah.
It's the stigma.
Yeah.
So stigma exists in treatment.
Yeah.
Kind of the bottom line. And I don't take any offense at it in hindsight. It is what it is. I presented horribly. It's interesting to me that I'm only in touch with one person from my treatment unit. I'm aware at least 5 or 6 are deceased now.
Wow.
And as far as I know, other than this one guy, the rest of them did return to their particular use. So treatment is not an end-all be-all, which takes us back to the harm reduction part, which is if at first you don't succeed,
Try again.
Try again.
Or try a different route.
peer
Right.
services and harm reduction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that is such an interesting journey towards the realization that your physical health is just literally breaking down in front of everybody, and then you got people who are like, yeah, well, tick tock, and
Well, I had colleagues and friends who, people said, "Didn't anyone tell you?" I'm like, no, they don't. They might come in, "Oh, Bill, you look tired today," but
We don't say that out loud to people.
no. Even close friends, they don't come up to you and say, "We really need to have a conversation."
It's difficult because we don't want to hurt people's feelings. We don't want to push them away, and we don't want to shame them. But that's what happens when we speak to people without understanding, like, how can we do this the right way?
Yeah.
So that they see, like, I love you and I need you.
Yeah. And I want you around. That's why we're having this conversation, not because you're a drunk or a drug addict or this or that.
We're used to interventions.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's a program called that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for listening to Redefining Recovery, a Recovery Revolution. I'd like you to join us in supporting our mission by becoming a monthly donor, an annual donor, a volunteer at Minnesota Recovery Connection. And if you want any information, please visit our website at minnesotarecovery.org. I want to also say we welcome Bill back next show to talk about this journey. So we're going to have a part. I just want to thank you for listening to Minnesota Recovery Connections, Redefining Recovery, Recovery Revolution. Have a marvelous day.
See you next week.